All right, if I get everyone's attention, welcome to the crash course at Silicon Flatirons. My name is Brad Bernthal. I'm the director of the Entrepreneurship Initiative here at Silicon Flatirons. Super special way to start the year. For those of you who have been to crash courses before, you know that we're usually up in room 300. Demand for this event was such that we needed a larger facility, and so I guess there's some pressure on the presenters to make the larger room justified, but fantastic to see the community coming together for this. By way of background, I was gone for the spring semester in Santiago, Chile, and it was fascinating how our little hamlet of 125, 150,000 people is truly known on an international scale. It was fascinating how many people in the startup scene there wanted to know more and more about what's going on in Boulder and the Front Range of Colorado, and gave me brand new eyes on just how special this scene is. However, and David will appreciate this, Santiago, Chile does have one thing that we don't have, and that is red clay tennis courts. So we gotta work on that. There's some opportunity there in terms of entrepreneurs. All right, who's been to a crash course before? Okay, so maybe half. How many folks are here from the campus? Student, faculty, and community? God, it's just about 50-50. That's awesome. We'll start with some announcements. I'll make a few from the podium. We'll open it up to community announcements in terms of upcoming events, or if you are looking to hire, we'll open up for that. And then we'll take a moment. I'll encourage you to meet somebody nearby. I'll introduce Natty and David. We'll do the crash course for somewhere around, the presentation Q&A, somewhere around 45 minutes to an hour, and then going to open it up to the audience for Q&A. What you guys have in mind? No. What do you have in mind? More interactive. Okay, I'll defer to you guys. All right.
Let's talk about what they want.
Crash course is over. We got a dispute up here. All right.
Unless they don't ask you, then we got stuff.
Okay, so it'll be open from the. I'll let you guys decide the parameters. It's going to be great. All right, so a couple of announcements for starters. One is this is the first crash course of the year. We also have a series called Entrepreneurs Unplugged, which is basically the actors studio with serial entrepreneurs. That gets kicked off on September 3rd. Phil Weiser and Brad Feld will be interviewing Larissa Herta of TW Telecom. That is, as I said, September 3rd, 5:30 here. Additionally, on September 24th, New Venture Challenge 8 gets underway. Larry's recording, so I said I wasn't gonna. It's a fucking great program. I mean, you guys, it's a pretty cool program. So we kick that off September 24th here. That's going to be a ton of fun. Lisa Reeves and an alum, Philip Tayton, who's the one of the founders at Melinda, and I think I saw Chris over here somewhere, who's the CEO. They're going to be talking at the kickoff, so that'll be a lot of fun. And finally, I want to give a thank you. I get to do a lot of the talking. But here from Silicon Flatirons, Anna Noskazy, our program director, Cactus. Student volunteers who are here, please raise your hand. I know a lot of them are in the hall. Thank you, Nick. And we have a transition going on. Our outgoing Silicon Flatirons fellow who ran NVC 7, Andy Evans, is here. A warm thank you to Andy for what he did in terms of NVC 7. Our incoming fellow, Andy Marchant, is here. Where's Andy? And he's going to be running NVC 8. Upcoming events in the community. What's going on? Anyone want to plug in a bet? Please stand up. Go ahead. Stand up, yes? Oh, that's enough.
I'm doing a panel on control, crowdfunded, and more equity compensation options and convertible notes for early stage founders.
When is it?
Tuesday morning, 8 a.m.
No, when starts?
September 28th, or October 2nd.
Thanks, Sierra. Go in the back and look with Natty. Yeah.
Kind of a festival for makers, entrepreneurs, design thinking. You can find out more at I think we're going to talk a lot more about this during the session, but Techstars demo day is September 9th, so save the date, and we're about to send out the RSVP link. So hopefully all of you can make it and check out the companies from this year's program. And I'm sure we'll talk more about Techstars in case anyone doesn't know what that is, but September 9th, Boulder Theater, 7 p.m. It's going to be awesome.
Mike?
I'm working with the South Dakota School Minds and the City of Rapid City, South Dakota, to try to replicate an entrepreneurial environment similar to what we have here in Boulder. So catch up with me on the break and afterwards and tell me about what you find most valuable here, and we can look into, it'll help me figure out what to replicate and work with there.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so up on board at Deming Center, and one of the things
If you don't mind, do you mind standing up so people can see you?
one of the things we created there, I know a lot of folks in here may be investing in startups, but we created a website called Interns to Startups, and it's designed to match students here at the university who are looking for internships with startups who are always looking for good people that will work a lot cheaper than full-time employees will on key projects that they've got to work. So you just go to interns2startups.com and you can register your company, and students can do the same to register for internships. And Ariana, who's running Spark, we're now moving the location for that project to the Spark location. So there will be training sessions that will be happening through that as well for students that are going through programming and SEO marketing, which are two of the skill sets that we're finding a lot of the startups are looking for.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, Dawn.
Yeah.
Was that?
Any others? Anyone looking to hire for a company? Any job announcements? All right, with that, I want to take 2 minutes. Really nice tradition that locally Robert Rich helped kick off. Many of you might have seen it at church sometime. Reach out to somebody near you that you've not met before tonight. Introduce yourself, visit for a minute or two, then we'll reconvene. I'll introduce Dave and Natty.
Hey, Natty. Steve, nice to meet you. Hey, yeah, nice to meet you guys. Oh, awesome. I missed that day. I was out. Jack. Awesome. You're his dad? Cool. Everyone loved that session. That's awesome. Cool. Is he here or where is he? Or are you guys based in Colorado? Okay. Yeah, that night I had my sister-in-law's wedding that weekend, so I wasn't there. But Zach was there. He said it was amazing. Cool. Good. Are you guys coming to demo day? I think we sent you the invite for demo night. Cool. Good. We'll see you there. Nice to meet you.
I still kind of am contemplating open retirement after this. I just had a terrible summer.
Yeah. Are you still at all injured, or are you really healthy?
I played great down on the clay. I was.
It's so much better for you.
And I came back thinking, I'm going to have the best summer ever. I've been playing a ton down there.
But this ain't real clay.
Just got smoked for a month on there.
All right, you guys ready to roll? All right, this is the fun part where I try to reconvene. Wow, this is like the hardest time I've ever had bringing it back together. All right, I'm just going to keep talking now, and I'm going to keep talking until we get back some semblance of order. All right, here we go.
Robert's rules.
All right, awesome problem to have. We're ready to roll. All right, by way of introduction, Natty Zola, David Cohen. Natty, by way of background, is a native of Boulder. He started his career professionally out in New York City. Then he and his best friend from Boulder, who was also in New York City, Nate Abbott, decided that they wanted to go travel in South America. They quit their jobs, depleted their savings, and had an awesome time, except that they found that they were having a lot of frustration communicating their stories and pictures back to friends and family at home. They decided that they would start a company around it. They called it Ever Later. Ever was then accepted into the first or second Techstars class? Third Techstars class, okay? The third Techstars class, raised financing, continued to grow that company, and then sold it to AOL. And after that, Nate and Natty ran the AOL MapQuest office out of Denver. Natty just came on board as Managing Director for the Techstars Boulder program. Please help me welcome Natty. David Cohen is originally from Florida, if I have it right. I was looking for that. Is that correct? Like most good people, he's a tennis player and enthusiast. He also happens to be an entrepreneur by way of background, and was the founder and CTO of Pinpoint Technologies, among other companies, which was acquired by Zola. He then became an angel investor, which he found somewhat frustrating and thought there has to be a better model. He approached some other individuals around town and came up with a model that eventually became Techstars, and I think launched what has made Boulder one of the cradles of the investment accelerator movement. In parallel, he started a super angel fund, Bullet Time Ventures, which did extremely well, and over the last year closed on a fund for Techstars, which I believe has $150 million under management. Please help me welcome David Cohen.
Can you guys hear us? In the back, thumbs up? Okay, awesome. First, we want to thank Brad, Silicon Flatiron, CU Boulder, and this community. It's an awesome thing to have here, and they do so much for everyone and for us on the Techstars and investment side and as startups. So a round of applause for Silicon Flatiron, CU Boulder, and everyone else. So initially, the topic of the conversation here is how to pitch angel investors, and so we're going to talk about that. We have a bunch of prepared questions and answers, which we can go through, but we always think it's better to hear what questions you guys have and address those. So maybe we'll start with a few questions on our side, but please raise your hand, interrupt us. This will be a much better session if we're answering your questions rather than answering my questions or David's questions. So that's the plan. The more interactive, the better. Sound good?
Look, interaction.
So let's say I've got a friend who has a company, he's trying to find,
I'm going to repeat the question too, so don't worry.
and some people found him, he's maybe at a stage where he can start taking some capital. What are some good channels for him to begin get in front of angels, VCs, and start doing that?
So I'll repeat the question. So he has a friend who's looking to raise money, and he's curious, where do you start? How do you find angel investors? So no better person to answer that than David.
Yeah, I would come to a crash course on angel investment, and I would kind of hang out and try to meet people. Let's just pin it, right? Because I do think there's some setup stuff that we should get to. But we're going to come to that as the first thing after a couple setups, because I want people to have a little more context. Does that work for you? Yeah. So why don't you ask your couple of setups, and then we'll go into that.
So first, since we've said the word Techstars a lot, let's make sure everyone knows what Techstars is. So David, tell us about Techstars.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with Techstars, it's known as an accelerator model primarily, but today we actually do a lot more than just accelerators. Am I good in the back? Volume's good? Okay. So we started here in Boulder, 2006, with this idea that if you could surround companies with mentorship, it would be very powerful. And those mentors could be capable of making investments as angels if they wanted to, but didn't have to. And it's this 3-month program. They get a little bit of money and a lot of mentorship. And after 3 months, there's this demo day that we were just talking about, where it's sort of a coming out launch party for the companies. And it turns out that a lot of investors want to see that, because we've been selecting about 1% of startups, right? It's been pretty good filter for investors. This is scaled up now, and if you don't know the scale of Techstars, again, a thing that started here. And by the way, there are a lot of really interesting entrepreneurship things that started here. Startup Weekend being another. There's just tons of cool things that get started here and get spread around the world. Unreasonable being another one. It today is operating 18 times a year, 18 programs a year. It only happens once a year here, but it happens in New York, it happens in Chicago, it happens in London and Berlin and Seattle and Austin, Texas, and LA and many other places. Fundamental belief of Techstars is you don't have to move somewhere to do a tech startup. You can be supported where you are by amazing communities that know how to support entrepreneurs with both mentorship and capital. About half of what we do on the accelerator side is like the one in Boulder, where we essentially fund any type of internet company, software-looking company, and each company gets $120,000. They go through this 3-month program, and at the end, on average, they raise about $3 million post-program from the venture community. So that's the city format, which most people are familiar with. We also run accelerators on behalf of some of the most important corporations in the world, companies like Nike and Ford and Barclays and Disney. These are verticalized versions of Techstars that we power for them. We run an accelerator under their brand, like the Disney Accelerator, which is focused on digital media and entertainment, but it's the same model we use here, and it's us doing it. So 18 of these a year. That's the accelerator piece that probably a lot of people do know about Techstars for. There are other pieces now. A couple of months ago, we actually acquired Up Global, which has Startup Weekend, Startup Week, as well as Startup Digest, and Startup Next, which are programs that are more community-oriented. There are about 11 or 1,200 events a year that happen around the world, in every corner of the world. They're inspirational events. Startup Weekend, have you ever been to one? Very inspiring, really gets you plugged into a community. A lot of people meet their co-founders there, build businesses. All of that activity is now part of what we do on the community side. And then the other piece, as Brad mentioned, is the venture capital piece. What are the resources post-accelerator? Capital is a big important piece of that. We now have about $300 million in capital to deploy into the companies that go through those programs. So we like to think of it as trying to help from idea or inspiration to IPO, right? It's an integrated set of capabilities that help inspire, help educate, help accelerate, help finance, and even help exit, and then create a virtuous cycle around that. So people like Natty come back and mentor, or in some cases get even more deeply involved. There are many alumni who've started their own angel funds after having successful exits. And just high level on the data, about $1.7 billion raised by accelerator companies now across the system, but billion. About 75 exits by M&A. We haven't had any IPOs yet, but a couple of unicorns baking in all aspects of those different parts of the business. And I think a year from now we'll be able to credibly say at least one unicorn billion-dollar company has come out of each of those three parts of the business. I expect that there are a couple that'll get there very soon that we can talk about. And so, it's a very powerful economic engine. It draws angel investors in, and in the process, we've learned a lot about angel investing, both by doing and observing across, some 700 companies that we've been involved with.
I think one of the cool things, just to point out, is that it started here in Boulder. And the Boulder program is the longest running program. So this is its 9th program. It started in 2007. And we've now had 99 companies come through the Boulder Techstars program. And so there are a lot of second order effects of that. I don't think we know, but the number of jobs in the local economy from Techstars graduates has got to be in the hundreds, if not higher, maybe thousands. So when a Techstars is in a location, there's a lot of additional benefits beyond just the growth of that company itself. And it's cool to have that started here. So.
Well, and it's a testament to the community. It's doesn't happen without mentors and people engaging and showing up and advocating for the companies and all that. So I think we've all done that. And one of the things Brad said too is you go to Santiago, Chile, and they know about Boulder. They do. I've spoken all over the world about entrepreneurial communities, Tokyo, Singapore, wherever, right? And it's a case study for them. People come to learn about what's happening here in Boulder, right? And that's something to be really excited about for a small town like this. So,
great. Let's jump into the topic of angel investors. So, David, let's start and tell us how you got involved in being an angel investor.
Yep. So, 30-second career history. I'm a software engineer by training, coder, hacker. I was the founder slash CTO, as they call it these days. Back in my day, they called it VP engineering, but CTO, much cooler. 3 times at 3 different companies. If you've ever fallen down and been picked up by an ambulance, about a 40% chance that's software that my first company created. You see Pridemark and AMR running around. It's the logistical software that manages all of that. And had another company that failed, had another company that succeeded, so sort of went 2 in 1 as a founding entrepreneur. And after that, started angel investing. And definitionally, angel investing is investing one's own money into startups. And the best way to turn a large fortune into a small one. And so, you are interested as an entrepreneur that's seen some stuff and are still, fairly young, right? Has some energy left in them. You kind of have 2 choices, right? One is you can go move to Hawaii and sail around on a yacht and, do that, or you can try to, have some fun and mental exercise by helping startups. And many people who've been lucky, enough in business are doing angel investing because it's a fun way to give back and give yourself some mental exercise. So after those 3 companies, I started kind of randomly making angel investments. My first one was with Sue Kuntz, who I don't know if many of you may know, and a company called Solidware. I invested $50,000 because I like Sue. Like kind of almost literally that was it. And I was my point of view on that was that was tuition, right? That was the cost of learning how to do angel investing. And for those of you thinking of paying tuition like that, I would encourage you to use a smaller number. It doesn't have to be 50,000, right? You could do 10,000 or 25,000. And it was one that did okay, sold to another company, and I forgot about. And actually, like 2 years ago, I got a $100,000 check, so that was kind of surprising and cool. Like I kind of thought, oh, maybe I'll get some money back on that, but it turned out to be good, right? So I got my tuition back with interest, which was cool, and just was, started blogging about being an angel investor. And I started a blog that some people might remember called Colorado Startups, and I started pretending to be a good angel investor, even though I had no idea what I was doing. Which I would also encourage you to do if you want to become something. Just start acting like you're that, right? And sooner or later, I had started to maybe make a dozen, maybe 15 angel investments, and that's about the point where I had the thought that Brad referred to, which is, man, this sucks. Like this is not good. The reason it sucks is because I'm meeting this very nice person in a coffee shop, and writing a check, and then like not hearing from them for 4 years. Like this is no fun, right? Like I'm not getting to help, and that's sort of where eventually the idea of Techstars came from, of course.
Do you feel like most angel investors have a similar approach and rationale for why they're angel investing? Or how would you describe the general population of angel investors and what they're trying to get out of the experience?
Yeah. So motivations. Yeah. So I think why do they do it? I think that's really important for people that are pitching them to understand. And the first key construct that I always like to talk about is, this idea of the angel or the investor kind of doesn't exist. They're people, right? They all have different motivations. They all have different sets of biases and experiences. And I think that's important to sort of realize is that it's their money when you're talking about angels, and they're investing it however they want to. And the assumption that I run into from most entrepreneurs, and I had the same assumption, was that they're all doing it for financial gain, right? And you will find that is not actually true. Certainly they don't intentionally want to lose money, but many of them, and myself included when I was first angel investing, was doing it, I would have said for financial break-evenness. Like I didn't want to lose money, but if I can invest in you and get that money back later and actually help you in some way, that was going to be satisfying to me. And I thought I would learn from that, right? And so my motivation was, yeah, sure, it'd be nice to make some money. Like you never know, right? I'm going to invest in something that is 1,000x, right? But you just, really my motivation was, I love startups. I love the first year. And every company I ever built, the first year was the fun part, when everything was totally screwed up. You had no idea if it was going to work. You didn't even know what you were doing. You had a team that had no business doing what they were doing, right? And then once it started working and it became management and growth, I was like, this is awful, terrible. So I realized that about myself, and I started, having the ability to do whatever I wanted to do. It seemed like a perfect thing for me because I could work on what I wanted to work on, what I would pick. I could do it with people I liked, and I could do it here, right? These were the appealing things. And as long as I didn't lose money doing that, I was going to be okay. And I had a shot at making money. So that was my motivation. Now, you can bucket this in lots of different areas. There are pure financial angel investors. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Are there any people in the room that are brave enough to say, I'm an angel investor? 1, 2, 3, 4. So some people do it primarily or exclusively for return, right? That's just it. Others feel like it's a way to give back to the community and to contribute. Again, they could sail around or they could do something awesome, right? And help other people. Learning is often a motivation that I hear. I love working with young, interesting startups, young in age of the startup, not people, but new startups, because I learn new ways of doing things. And I can apply that to other things that I'm involved in, whether it's my own business or other investments I've made. And I think some people, it's a combination of all of this. Or for those of you that raised your hand, what motivations did I miss? Are there others?
Being part of something that's going to be great success.
Yeah, just the feeling of having contributed to something that changes the world, right? Yeah, I agree with that. That's awesome, right? When you can say that. Did I miss any other motivations? Okay. And there's no judgment about any of those motivations. They're all fine, right? And often you'll find a blend of all of them.
We wish there was a formula, but there isn't one. Not one size fits all. Any questions? Should we open it up?
Well, we
Should
have the
talk
one.
about where
So
do you find
do I
these
go?
angel investors?
Yeah, I have a friend who wants to raise some money from angel investors, and I need to know, where do I go, right, to find that opportunity? And the answer is, as with everything, it depends. But I think some tactical things that you can go do. There are certainly angel groups, right, that are out there. Some angel groups are awesome. Most angel groups are not awesome. And it's going to be a long-ass answer. Is that okay? I'm going to take forever with this. This is not Twitter. This is going to be big. You can go to an angel group. So we used to have a thing here called CTech, right? Now we have Boulder Angels. Sometimes they're easy to find. Sometimes they're hard to find, right? That's a way as you go on platforms, that angel groups hang out on. What's the one in New York? I can't remember what it's called. What? Gust. Thank you. Gust has lots of angel groups on it, right? You can search for them and find them. AngelList, more sort of, independent angels with syndicates. Certainly AngelList is a great source of finding, people somewhere that are interested in what you're doing, because investors go on there and categorize themselves as interested in SaaS or, invest in Colorado or I don't, right? There's regional focus that you can discover. I think there are lots of people in the community who are just known to do angel investing once in a while on their own. A lot of them tend to hang out around things like accelerators. They tend to mentor in things like accelerators because some of the motivation for doing that is to find deal flow. I say accelerators themselves, incubators, accelerators, places where investors might come looking for stuff. Most angel investors that I know are not commonly investing off of a cold email or a contact form, right? It's through experiences with the entrepreneur. So my advice is, when you do learn about an angel investor, run into them, get some feedback from them, build a relationship, try to get people interested over time as opposed to treating it as a one-off pitch. I think most angels kind of like the data points over time. Mark Suster has a famous post, lines, not dots. So anywhere we can get experiences with these folks. Some of them are dumb enough to just start blogging like I used to do and talking about the fact that they actually do angel investing. But today I would say these platforms like Gust and AngelList and the accelerators are where I would say, most of them are probably hanging out because it's organized activity. Is that helpful?
Open it up Q&A, please.
You had said you have some good angel investment groups out there, some not so good.
Yeah.
How do you know what are good and what's not? What makes a one that's not so good?
Well, if you're looking to understand is an angel group good or not good, how do you do it? Fundamentally, that's your question. I would start with the assumption that they're probably not, in my experience. And the reason they're probably not is because many of them are really kind of social clubs. Like, I used to describe my experiences with angel groups as, an excuse for people, who probably have money but maybe don't, to get together and be entertained by startups who present their businesses in front of these groups whilst the investors eat tiny sandwiches and drink champagne. Right? I mean, that's been my experience with a lot. Now, again, some of them awesome. Tech Coast Angels, for example, awesome. I think LA focused. And there's plenty of good ones. I think the first question to ask and the way to understand it is, what have you invested in? Anyone who won't tell you is a huge red flag, unless they say, we've never done it before, and then you just understand the risk you're taking. But when I first joined an angel group here in Colorado that I don't think exists anymore, because I was just interested in angel investing, so I went to that to understand it. C-Tech Angel is super well intended, but I don't think, of the 80 or so people that I would encounter, I don't think 75 of them had ever made an angel investment. That's an awful lot of entrepreneur bandwidth to be taking up when you're not really investing. And so I met a few of the people that were. People like Jared Polis and Jared Wandry and others were people that I met there. And I think anyone that won't answer that question, can tell me about the last 5 investments you made, or maybe 2 or 3 that I've heard of. I would treat that as a pretty big signal that they're not really investing. And if they tell you, that's great. And you say, were you personally involved in that? Because if there's 100 people in a group, right, maybe one person in the group made an investment and 99 didn't. I'd want to understand from that company, who actually invested, how have they been, just like doing a little bit of diligence.
I wonder if, let's say I had a big data concept, I basically know some data sets that would be very important to the energy industry, but they're somewhat contractual right now because they're so unorganized. Is that something that could be funded by, say, Techstars or an angel group?
Yeah.
Or are you guys looking more for actual technology advances or apps?
Yep. So I'll repeat the question. If I have specific technology application that I'm doing, is that something that's interested to angel groups or accelerators? Interesting to angel groups or accelerators? And I'll go back to the answer of there is no the accelerator, there is no the angel, there is no the investor. Somebody out there might be interested. I would say don't have enough information to tell you if I'm interested. Right, but I think it's a process of doing the work to understand the kinds of things. We, for example, on our website have 600 plus companies completely transparent on our website that we've funded, how much money they've raised, where they're located, how to contact them, right? You can look at people's portfolios to understand, does this feel like that type of thing? So I don't want to get too into the specifics of the specific thing you're doing, but understand that there is some legwork to be done to understand what people do invest in. And databases like Crunchbase will tell you, they've tried to keep up with how many companies I've invested in. I'm not sure they quite have them all, but they have probably hundreds of them, right? So you get a sense, oh, it looks like David really does, $100,000 investments in, software, IT, internet-looking things. That would be the pattern for me. You won't see many medical devices, right, for example. So that's not to say there isn't someone that would be doing that. So I think you have to do a little bit of research as opposed to just talk to everyone that says they're an angel investor.
Let's go all the way far, far back up there, because I saw your hand up earlier.
Oh, good. We got a mic. Look at that.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So you mentioned before something about like, building a rapport basically with angel investors if you're seriously going to seek out funding from them. Can you talk a little bit about the time it really takes to go through that process and how it contrasts to venture capital and the due diligence that's put into that? And also, like let's say my company wants to raise $250,000, that check's probably going to come from 3 or 4 different angel investors maybe.
Yeah.
What's a reasonable window to leave, and how do you leave off a conversation if an angel investor is interested, but I still need more people to close the round that I'm looking into or that I want to close?
There's a lot of questions there.
Yeah.
So
how about the time to process?
let's take the time to process. Yeah. Then let me hit the other one if I don't forget what it is, or the other two. Maybe there's two there. I think for angels, you can expect wide variance. The problem with angels generally when you're trying to pitch them is that no one likes to be first. There's often not an incentive for an angel investor to be like, sure, I'll give you $100,000 when you have nobody else committed and maybe I'm the only money. You can create incentives, right? And so it's a job of manufacturing momentum, which I do a whole other shtick on that, which you've seen 27 times. And it's on some level social engineering to get those people to sort of move, especially early on. But I think, with angels, I've done the coffee shop meeting and written the $50,000 check, right? I've done, people love to hear the Uber story, right? As in the first round of Uber, like how the heck did that happen? Yeah, the guy came and he mentored and he told me he was doing this thing. They didn't have any cars. I didn't know who he was. He was driving across the country. Sounded cool. 15 minutes over a beer, I'm in. It was one of those, right? That happens. And I think, frankly, a lot of the best investors don't do much due diligence at this stage. Like, that's a controversial statement. But when I think about my best investments ever made, early stage angel, pre-seed sort of investments like you're talking about, it's been like this, oh my God, like I love this. I love this person. I love this thing. I want to be part of that. I believe this, right? And just, yes. And that was Twilio. That was a lot of, like, SendGrid was one meeting in an airport, I'm in, right? Now, there have been others I've done more diligence because I was less sure. So to me, due diligence for angels is a great way to talk yourself out of doing a good deal, right? People have different values. Some people think differently about it. At Techstars, we will make an investment. It's $120,000 we're investing, and it's probably 3 short meetings on average.
One company we knew after 1 meeting, and one company we had probably 6 meetings, and it just depended on our comfort level with entrepreneurs, the space that they were in, and just sort of the feeling of, this is going to be something big, and these people are the people to do it.
So once again, angel investor, my money, my decision. Nobody to answer to, maybe at home, but other than that, no, I don't have investors, right? It's just me. It's just us, right? My family. Contrast that, which is the question to venture capital. Again, there is no the investor, so it's all different. If it's a seed investment from a venture capital firm, many of them will behave very similarly. This is great, couple of meetings, love this, here's $100,000, here's $250,000, right? You can get that kind of money from a seed fund in a meeting or two quite often. Others will torture you for months. It varies. Now, if you're going to go raise $5 million, you should expect either that they already know you very well through some other experiences, or there is going to be a significant amount of due diligence, which will generally be months, right? And a lot of times they're not going to move until you have other offers or there's some dynamic that's changing that seems like it's adding value. The best investors don't care about that stuff. They get convicted and they just go. The herding of the cats, which I think is the other part of the question, you have to get everybody to do it together.
We have to raise this much by December 31st or else.
Yeah. First, I would ask, why do you have that timeline? Right, and this is a whole different topic, right? I think of how to engineer early commitments, but in summary, I would say remove the fear of being first. You don't need to write a check until I get the whole round, right? I'm not asking you to write a check right now. I don't need you to be the lead investor. I don't need to ask you all these scary questions as an investor. I just want you to be in, assuming you like the deal, which we'll figure out later, and assuming that the round comes together, and assuming you like all the other investors, and whatever else you're worried about. So this is the hack to get through this, is be a really good listener. Don't create issues, right? Listen to what they're concerned about. Take away the concern. And as entrepreneurs, we often want to solve the problem. So I can't possibly invest. I don't want to be the first committer. I don't even know what the price is yet. Okay, well, assuming the price is fine with you later, are you in? Right? It's like this jujitsu, sort of, you have to, and this is what we teach at Techstars, right? And hopefully more people learn about this stuff and sort of start to get it. But it is a game that you have to generate momentum and socially engineer when you have multiple angels that you're trying to coordinate on a timeline.
Yeah, if the company that you were looking to invest in had formed a partnership, let's say, with another company that had invested in them, would that de-risk the point that you just brought up for you at all, or do you just look at who's invested in it?
Again, a lot of investors do look at signal. They look at who else is investing and whatever. Me personally, I don't care. Like I think if I have some data about the company, I care less that Mark Suster or Brad is investing than I care about what do I know about this company, right? Obviously, it affects you a little bit, but I think I'm not going to do it because they're doing it, right? If I know somebody that knows you well, that helps. If I don't, I have more work to do. That's how I think about it.
Can I jump in here?
Yeah.
David, do you think that that's a common belief by angel investors, or do you think that your approach is untraditional?
The belief of...
Or just making your own decisions?
I guess I would venture a guess that most angel investors are followers, right? And that's okay. That's one strategy. When I made my first investment, I was a follower. I said, who else is in? Oh, Brad's in? Okay, this is a good one to pay tuition on, right? Was my attitude, because there are other people I've heard of in this deal. I didn't know him back then, right? It didn't really tell me much other than, yeah, there must be something right about this. Like maybe they're doing it right at least. But I think most investors are going to commit in the latter half of the round. Again, usually there's not much incentive to commit in the first half. And we all try to manufacture those incentives. Like if you come in earlier, I'll give you a better price. And then the later investors are like, wait a minute, they got a better price. And it doesn't actually end up that way in a lot of cases, unless you have leverage. So I do think most of the better ones that I've encountered are just, I'm in, right? And they don't care too much about other stuff. And I'm in under conditions, right? Like I don't want to be alone. I don't think it's okay that if you're raising 250 and I'm 50K that I just write you a check. I want to do it when you hit the 250, I would say, because I want you to have runway. So I'll have conditions, but it'll be, sort of how much I love the company, for me.
Let's go here. Yeah.
All right. So
There's a mic coming.
You mentioned the valuation. Talk is loud. You mentioned the value of this investment, and I'll share my story. It's a lot like everyone's in the room, so it's a perfect case study. Small startup, great space, really nice need, really talented team, lots of money in this market, but I don't have any assets. I don't have any revenue.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that pre-money valuation?
Yeah. So how do you arrive at the pre-money valuation? And I'm gonna, because it's kind of a little bit related to the other question. I'll do a little bit of what I normally do on this with entrepreneurs when I coach them, because this is, after all, how to pitch angel investors, right? So I think the key tip I would give you is that you have to make valuation the last thing, and not the first thing. And this is such a common mistake. And so if you're pitching me, and I mean, I'm going to do what angel investors do. I'm going to say, oh, great, you have no revenue, and you've got this, like, look at that hockey stick you have in that spreadsheet. That is amazing. I have never seen a hockey stick quite like that one, right? But I like what you're doing, and I'm going to say to you, yeah, I'm really interested in investing. What's the valuation? And most of you, being entrepreneurs and problem solvers, will say something like, 5 million pre-money, or 3.5 million pre-money, when you have very little data about what the market is for your company right now. And it's the urge to solve the problem. I kind of mentioned that earlier, right? Like, if I'm being asked about the valuation, I have to tell you what it is, right? And many of you are very clever. You'll say, well, I don't know, like, what do you think the valuation is, right? And you'll throw it back on me, and I'll say 2 million, which is not really helping you, right? So to let me anchor, right? And the problem is that we're making it the first thing. And I want you to make it the last thing, right? I want you to say, David, I'm much more concerned about who my investors are than what the valuation is. Like, you know, I know how much value you can bring to the company. Let's figure that part out. But assuming we can figure that part out, can I count on you for 100K? And you ask for the sale. I'll say, wait a second. Jiu-jitsu move. Like, you're telling me that I can invest 100K on terms that are ultimately acceptable to me? Double thumbs up. I'm not afraid of that issue anymore. Now I can be the first committer, the first investor in that amazing company that later will be oversubscribed and doing amazingly well, but right now has no momentum with no risk. Like, you have to put yourself in the shoes of that investor. That's a great hack for everybody, is it's not about the price, it's about getting you. And there are many other conditions that people will place on you. Like, I need you to be based in Boulder because I only like to invest here in Boulder. And you're thinking, I'm not sure I'm going to be here. And you say something like, well, I might be in the Bay Area. And I go, right, because I'm an angel investor. You created that problem, not me. All you needed to say was, hey, David, I hear you. You want to invest 100K on terms that are ultimately acceptable to you, assuming we're based here in Boulder, right? Got it. And by doing that, you can begin to manufacture momentum in a soft commitment. A soft commitment is a commitment to invest a specific amount of money with well-understood conditions, right? And so by understanding my fears and what conditions I might have on actually giving you the check, you can get me to commit. And if you can get me to commit, you're manufacturing momentum. And you can go say, David's in, assuming we meet the conditions. This is a lot all at once. But the magic of this, if you're following along, is conditions fall away with momentum. Once the round is oversubscribed, I don't care if you're in Boulder anymore. I don't want to lose out on a hot deal. Once you have more revenue and the thing is oversubscribed, like, oh, okay, you're going to be in San Francisco? Cool, right? I was in early, like, you know, I'm in this hot deal. Valuation becomes your friend instead of your enemy. I'm oversubscribed. You know that 100K we were talking about on the million I was raising? You know, I've got 1.3 committed. I really still want you in, and we've decided the price is going to be 4 million pre-money. How's that work for you? It works for everybody else. Like, you have a shift when you have commitment and momentum. You have a shift in control. When you don't have control and you don't have momentum, you're at a massive disadvantage. So don't solve the problem, take away the issue. And this I usually do in an hour, so I'm trying to give you some of the quick tips. Is this making sense to people? Right? It's about manufacturing momentum and taking away concern early on.
Go over here in blue.
Besides the capital, what can you expect from an angel? Or maybe conversely, what can you not expect to get out of that?
Yeah, what do I get from angels besides capital? You're lucky if you get the capital. Sometimes they forget to write the check. Yeah, so what else can they bring to the table? And again, that's a thing to check on. So if I have an angel that is unknown to me, I'm going to ask, you know, who have you invested in? And I'm going to go talk to those people. Would you mind introducing me to those people? And if they say no, like, watch out. There's no reason to say no, right? They say, sure, talk to Natty. I've worked with him before, right? And I think you ask, you know, what have they done for the company? And sometimes the answer is absolutely nothing. Just nothing. That's pretty good, believe it or not. In the spectrum of what they could do, that is not so bad, right? Like, their money is spendable at the grocery store, right? Like, it buys food or employees. That's pretty good, right? On the far good end of the spectrum, you know, they're actively making introductions. I would say the best angels in my experience are reactive to the asks from you, right? They're not telling you what you should be doing all the time. Rather, they're saying, oh, I got your monthly email and I saw that you asked for an introduction to someone at Ford. I know how to do that. Can I do that for you? You drive them. right? And ask people that have taken an investment from this person, is that how it's been for you? And if the answer is, they invested and I kind of never hear from them, recognize that's not so bad. But if it's, wow, they invested and every third email I send out, they can fulfill one of my asks in some way, or they at least offer to, that's the introductions, the network value, which is probably the biggest value, right? Including the introduction and network value to future investors, because you may need to raise more money, and if they're known to those people and have made introductions where there's follow-on capital, like I could introduce you to Bessemer and Sequoia and all these guys, that's helpful, right? The other end of the spectrum is massive amounts of scrutiny. They believe they're running the company. They believe that they should be able to exert their contractual rights at every turn, right? To block a sale or whatever. Like, have they done stuff like that, or have they been constructive and helpful? And you can have. I had a situation with one company, and I can never say the names of these things, but a specific situation where I had one angel investor out of 20 investors that didn't want to do a sale. And it was a 1x, it was a return of money, and essentially an investment in a fast-growing company, right? But the value was 1-to-1, but this new company was doing really well, right? And so my view is I'd rather be in a company doing really well with my original investment than this company that's about to die, right? And I was all for it. Well, this one investor said, hey, I have this convertible note that has a 2x liquidation preference. I'm not getting my 2x here, so I'm not going to sign off. This company had made an error where they had put this investor in their own class. It wasn't part of our class because they were doing notes and they didn't have a good subscription document that made everything clear that it's just a majority that has to vote. Well, every investor had veto power. And this person was willing to exercise it, didn't care that we were all going to lose all of our money, didn't care that that this entrepreneur was going to tell everybody they knew that never take money from this person. And those are the things that happened. We eventually paid the ransom, right? All of us that were getting 1x ended up getting 0.9x or whatever. And we said, fine, just give that person, let's get him out of our life. And those 20 investors will never again work with that investor and will tell everyone they know to stay away. Reputational impact is huge in this world. And so, that particular story worked out okay, but I mean, tons of extra cycles and bandwidth because that investor decided that they were running the company and not being supportive of what the entrepreneur wanted within reason, right? So just talk to people about how they behave.
Oh, Gary, agree.
So when I'm looking for capital,
Actually, when my friend is looking for capital,
Is it him?
why would he look at an angel versus a venture capitalist?
Yeah.
So essentially, what are the differences in terms of what they look for in investment other than just the deal size?
Yeah, so deal size is definitely one. You mentioned at the top 250K. If you go to Bessemer and say, hey, I'm raising 250K, they're like, thanks for wasting my time, right? Like 10 million, that's our entry point, right? And that's just on you for not doing a little bit of research, right? And so deal size definitely one, but besides deal size, I think people go to angels for operational expertise. This is someone that's actually built a company. I think Fred Wilson, Chris Sacca, some of the best investors in the world, they've never built a company. They've never founded a company besides their venture firm, right? But tremendous investors. So be a little careful with it. Well, I need operating, so I go to an angel versus, could be a fund. You'll find different people in different roles. But I think operating experience is a big one. Certainly network, right? I think there might be a small new venture capital fund that is not going to have the network of a, Jason Calacanis or a well-known angel investor, right? And so again, independent of the type, right? Because there is the investor. Network value really huge, operating value really huge, connections to follow-on capital really huge. I'm probably missing some others. If any of the other angels want to throw something up, let me know. But
Talk a little bit about.
I think those are the big ones.
The difference of investing other people's money versus your own.
Yeah.
And the expectations around that.
Yep. So thank you. That's a good point. So you may say to yourself, I don't want to be pressured to build a high growth company that's going to exit, within 10 years, whatever the life of your fund is. I want an investor who's very aligned. I don't need that much money, right? I want an investor that doesn't have a time horizon. If you're running a venture capital fund, you have limited partners. It's their money that you're investing, right? If you're running it, you get some of the upside of that. They would like to see liquidity because the partnership only lasts 10, maybe 12 years. And if they're late in their fund and they're making investments in year 5 or year 6, you're talking about 4 or 5 year horizon to get their money back. And they're going to be at the board table, where's my exit, right? And so that dynamic matters a lot. Whereas an angel, hey, they could do that too. If the stock market does like Monday, they might be like, hey, I need a little extra liquidity. Like I might push you too, but it's more likely that it's, they're investing a small part of their net worth. They don't have any pressures from their investors typically. And so, that might be a dynamic as well.
What do you think that the right time is for a company and an angel to start working together as far as revenue or valuation, given that maybe valuation shouldn't be so high? But, and specifically like for a consumer packaged goods or a non-tech company that is bringing in revenue, like what are you looking for?
Yeah, so I don't do CPG, right? So I don't know if I can speak super intelligently about that in particular. But the gist of the question is, what's the right time to engage angel investors? And is that right? Is that the gist? Yeah, and I think, I would say like generally speaking, yesterday, like now. And again, it's relationship. It's not that I don't necessarily need money now, but have you heard the old adage, if you want money, ask for advice, and if you want advice, ask for money? Pretty true. Adages are there because they're actually often true. And I think that's a great way to build relationship, right? Is hey, I'm curious what you think of this. This lines not dots. Idea is that for me as an investor, the more trajectory I understand and how you're doing, the more likely I am to want to jump in. And so literally, I just formed this company. This is what I'm doing. You've been involved in a lot of stuff. I'm curious what you think, right? Or would you check the product out and give me one piece of feedback? I love emails like that, right? It's not very hard for me to do that. And it gives me a data point, right? And so I think early and often, I wrote a post called Small Asks on my blog, which is terrible English, but it's make small asks, make small requests, right? Don't come say, hey, can I get an hour and can we go to lunch and can we talk in detail about everything I'm doing? Say, hey, can you just check this out? Or I'm playing with this one feature. Do you think it's better like this or better like that? That's a very, if someone doesn't answer that email, they're just an ass, right? It's just not that hard, right? But after the email, it's like, oh, well, hey, I did that thing, that thing you said, I did A, or I did B, I did the other thing, because I don't agree with you. That's fine too. Right? You don't have to appease everybody. And then now it's like you're asking me something else, and I'm looking at the product, and now the website looks better. Or you've shipped 1,000 units, and I'm going, oh, that was, there's a line developing here. And so, much earlier than the day you're desperate for capital is my answer.
One thing that I'd piggyback on that we teach the teams or the companies at Techstars is start a friends of company name email and send that out every few weeks and send an update. And it's great as you're starting to meet investors, when you're meeting angel investors, when you're meeting mentors, ask if they want to join that email. And it's a great way for you to update them in a concise manner. How's the business doing? Drop in small asks there. And to this point of lines, not dots, that gives someone a lot of points where they've seen how you've executed, seen how you're growing, and that makes them much more likely and willing to engage. And then when it's time to ask them for money, they'll have a good picture of how's the business been doing. They'll have more track record with you. So we encourage our companies to do that, and anyone can do that.
Yeah, and when Brad hits his serve at me, right? I think technically I see the ball maybe 4 times. That's the speed at which my eyes can process. I may not read every update you send, but I still see the trajectory, right? I may read every 4th one, every 5th one, but I can still get a sense of where you're heading, how fast it's going. So don't be offended when you don't get a response to every single one, right? And at the end, you say, if you don't want this anymore, let me know, right? But I think that's a great tip, and we find it's one of the key ways that mentors around Techstars become angel investors in companies, is they may not be showing up every week to mentor or reading every email, but over 13 weeks, like they see the difference. They see the pitch now and then, and they see the team being built up and the progress being made. So really important to build that trajectory.
We also see that a lot of people who initially would not even consider investing in that company, once they've seen 13 weeks of momentum by them, they're so excited to invest, even if they don't like the market, because they just love how this company is executing. They love the team. And it's amazing what happens from that simple process.
Yeah. It's like we're torturing the guy with the mic here. It's like,
right next to
run over there, run over there.
So following up on building rapport with angels, how do you go about doing it? I mean, you're sending out these updates, but how do you do it when you're in limbo? So I've already secured seed funding, and now we're building the MVP. And I want to raise money before we run out at the end of, we've built the MVP and now we need money again. I want to start building that rapport, but sending those updates, I'm just sending a mock-up, or those different stages. Is there any better way to reach out to new angel investors and generate interest that way?
So if you've already raised a small round and you're trying to build momentum for a little bit bigger one, right? Some of those people that invested before might want to invest again, and understanding that appetite is step one, right? Because there's this whole signaling, are the insiders doing more? And if you're raising 5 million, whereas before you raised 500K, it doesn't matter that much. But if you're raising another 500K or $1 million, it kind of matters, that at least some of the investors want to keep going. If they're all out, that's a pretty negative signal to the next investors. And so, what happens is people raise money, and then they go and they make progress, and then the next time I hear from them is when they're ready for more money, right? And that doesn't feel great. So the cadence, while you're spending the initial money, here's the update, here's the good news, here's the bad news. I like that too. And then, before you're ready to go raise money, understand that appetite. And if you've done a good job communicating with those people, that they won't be like, wait, who are you? They'll remember you, right? Wait, who are you is not good when you're asking for the re-up. And then, I think getting them together, maybe not all of them can come, but offering to have them come and check it out and see it, touch it, feel it can help a lot. See the office, meet the people. Just extending that offer. Don't be worried if they can't all come at the same time. They're busy people. That's hard. And then the most likely source of new investors in your company are the referrals from the current investors. Right? They know people who invest. This is a social sport, right? It's a small world. And, I would ask all of them, who can you refer me to? Do you know, again, I don't know how much you're raising, but if it's 5 million, what VCs do you know? If it's $1 million, what, super angels or syndicate leaders do you know on AngelList, right? And work their referrals to get meetings, because that's much more credible than the cold email.
And my second question is, strategically, I think it would be better if I had at least one female investor. And I've been following connections with Merge Lane, but they've kind of gone cold. They haven't connected me with any of the female investors there. How do I find the female investors?
Well, I think it's finding the investors in the ways that I talked about before, and then trying to figure out who's a woman, right? It's, like there are some signs, but I think, it is a dynamic where, in the industry, this general problem, right? It extends to investors certainly, but again, get one, they know 10 others. So Sue, right, or whoever here in town is she? I'm sure she knows tons. And I do enough that I know tons, right? So I'm happy to try to give you an off-the-head list. If you email me, david@techstars.com, I won't get them all. And then you can look, again, Crunchbase or AngelList, try to find targets, and then, if strategically you're after a woman, I think that's a good in, right? To say, like, here's why I feel like I want a woman as an investor, right? And that's why I'm reaching out to you. Because it feels much better when you reach out to an angel and say, here's the reason it's you, right? Rather than, I'm just spraying this one email to everybody I can find. So customizing those and customizing the intro requests really matters.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe just a quick piggyback on that. I think angel investors are pretty good at smelling out the form email, and that's the easiest way to get a no. And I think a lot of this is around, don't put the work on the investor, right? That's not a good sign for you as an entrepreneur to back if you're putting the work on them. So make it easy on them. Use the tactics David has mentioned. Send them information.
The insight I would give you is it's definitely my experience that the first third of the round is the hardest and the last third is the easiest. And the reason for that is insider referrals. You have momentum, you have people saying yes, they know other people, right? Like really push your current investors for that.
During that momentum building stage that you're talking about, where you're trying to create momentum among investors, is there any sort of forms or any sort of agreements that are written, or is it more like verbal handshakes, that sort of thing?
Yeah, how do you know you have a commitment? Okay, and we talk about this a lot at Techstars. Essentially, that's the question, right? I'm getting early momentum. Do I have to get a handshake? Do I have to get a term sheet? Do I have to get an email? What do I have to do? And I gave you earlier the definition of a soft circle commitment. I think that's what you're going for early on, soft commitment. Hard commitment, like, I make a lot of dating analogies, right? So like hard commitment's like, hi, nice to meet you. Do you want to get married? Like that's like, here's the term sheet, like sign this and give me a check, right? That's a bit aggressive, for the first committer. The better soft commitment is, hey, do you want to get engaged? You can always back out, right? And you can back out for the reasons that we've enumerated and documented. And it's informal, right? And the reputation of the person really matters. What I like to do is have a very good conversation. That's a skill in itself, to have a good, clear conversation. If I understand you correctly, you want to invest $100,000 in our company under the following 4 conditions. Do I have all the conditions? Is this right? Are you committed if those 4 things happen? Right, that's a soft commitment and having a clear conversation. The problem is that really bad conversations happen. Like, so, how do we, take this to the next level? It's like, I don't know, take it next level. Well, I'm really interested in investing. Okay, cool. End of conversation. And then you go tell somebody they're in, and like the whole world falls apart because now you're a liar, and right? So clear conversation really, really matters. And if you can use that construct of the soft commitment being, yes, okay, 100K with the following conditions. I need to approve of the terms. I need to have you here in Boulder. I need to know the board is great, right? You need to raise at least $1 million. If I do those things, are you in? Right? That's this idea of this soft commitment. And recognize that you don't have to say, will you be my lead investor? That's really scary, right? Like, oh, I have to do legal stuff and put my name on this, right? That's just scaring them away. Saying a high valuation, scaring them away. Making valuation the issue, scaring them away, right? But getting them to a point where they're comfortable that ultimately, you have an out. And then building momentum off of that base such that they don't want to take the out. The conditions will fall away. That's the process I would use. Is that?
Yeah, 100%. And so would you say that a lot of these angels, they're good on their word? I mean, if they kind of make a soft commitment, are they usually good on
Yeah, but yes, generally speaking, that is my experience. You should check on their reputation because it's not universally true. And stock markets crash and things happen, right? And I said, well, I can't do it now, right? Like things happen, right? But by and large, they are good. When they actually make a soft commitment, they will invest if those conditions are met. And often, even when they're not met, as I've described, the problem is less that, and it's more that we're having crappy conversations, in my experience. You think I'm committed. Can I demonstrate? Now you know what the hack is, but can I randomly pick you? Like, hey, I'm really interested in investing $100,000 in your company. You're an entrepreneur, I'm an investor, pretty straightforward. What do you say? Yeah, sign this is one approach, but I would not recommend it, right? No, I'm interested in you. I want to invest. I'm super excited about this. It's hard, right? Like, it's hard to have a clear conversation. This is awkward stuff. It's just like dating, right? So what would you say if I said I'm super interested in investing $100,000 in your company and you had nobody else committed and I was the first potential investor? It's tough, right? You don't have to, if this is uncomfortable, just give the mic to someone else because, I mean, it helps everybody. Yeah. What are my expectations? Are you going to go make me a bunch of money?
Yeah.
I don't know. I expect it to be a positive return. Hopefully it's a 10x or better. But am I concerned about risk? Yeah. I mean, my life is risk, you know?
What are your conditions?
What are my conditions for what? Oh, why are you asking that question? Am I? Oh, look, a room full of intelligent people disagrees about whether or not I've actually committed to this company. Strange. Happens all the time, right?
Well, I have a few other people on the hook. Is it all right if I tell them that you're interested in investing?
Sure. Please do. Other ideas? I've got one person that thinks I made a commitment.
What's your timing?
What is my timing? I'm good to go. I have plenty of capital. Good to go whenever you're ready.
So what do I need to do to get the money from?
What do we need to do? Good question. I would really like you to have a certain amount of runway. So if you had $1 million runway, I would. That's what I would want to see. I want to see $1 million round. Yeah.
Do you know of anybody else that you might be interested in as well?
Tons. What?
Maybe do some introduction.
Happy to do introductions. First person you should talk to is Brad Bernthal. Cool, room full of intelligent people. How many people think that I'm investing $100,000 in this company? Raise your hand. How many people think I am not? Who never raises their hand at any events? Seriously, like, yes, David's in? Yes? David's out? David, unclear. Unclear. Most people say unclear. About a third of the people. No commitment here. This is unclear conversation. Right? Clear conversation is, David, can I count on your commitment for $100,000 in the round? That's a good question. Clear, right? Oh, count on me. I said I was interested. Oh, well, what can I do to get you to commit right now? What would have to happen in order to get a commitment from you? Anybody ever sell anything here? You have to ask for the sale, right? That's a clear conversation. Anybody ever been on a date? A couple of you? Hey, how you doing? Come here often? Nice to see you. How about we go out on a date sometime? Totally different, right? You have to make the ask. And you have to be clear about the ask, not, man, it's been really great hanging out. We should do that again sometime. That's not asking them out on a date. Sure, let's do it again sometime. Are we dating now? Unclear. Okay, so practice having really clear conversations and knowing the definition of the soft commitment. A commitment to invest a specific amount of money with specific, well-understood conditions. You can then say, what would it take to get, no, you're not committed? Or yes, you are, you have no conditions, you're in, no matter what, you're investing $100,000? Good to know. That's really rare, by the way. But yes, I'm interested in investing $100,000. What can I do, David, to get you to commit to that? Right? Are you ready to commit to that? Well, actually, I want you to raise at least $1 million.
So if I can raise $1 million, will you commit $100,000?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm worried about, yeah. This is the kind of shit that happens all the time. What do you say?
So David, to back that up, one more sentence. If I go raise $1 million, are you committed to the 100?
Well, I got a few other concerns.
Okay, what are those?
See, now he's asking me direct, good questions. Totally different tenor, right? Good question. What are the conditions under which you will invest that $100,000 so I can understand that? Oh, I only invest in companies that are based in Sacramento. I only date blondes or whatever, right? Like,
What would it take for you to invest in a company outside of
no, don't solve the problem. I got it, David. You want us to be based in San Francisco? What did I say? Sacramento. If you're based in Sacramento and you invest, sorry, if we're based in Sacramento and, you know, we raise $1 million, right? Are you in? Can I count on you for that commitment of 100,000? Actually, there's one other thing. You know, you're making me answer direct questions. You know, I really don't know what the, like, we haven't even talked turkey here. This is the, who's heard this one? I mean, how can I possibly commit without the prenup, right? Like the agreement, like what's happening here, right? Right, what are the terms? And your instinct, man, you gotta fight it. You gotta, right? Because your instinct is like, 4 million pre? You're just gonna, you know, here's the price, right? That's not what I want you to. I want you to fight that instinct. But when I say, you know, what's the deal? How can I possibly commit 100K without knowing what the terms are? You would say what?
Let's keep raising money, and the terms will keep changing.
You're gonna just change. Assuming the terms are ultimately acceptable to you, David, would you invest that $100,000? Or are there any other conditions that you're worried about? You know what? If you're in Sacramento and you raise at least $1 million on terms I like, I think I'd be in. You took away all my problems, and you gave me an escape hatch, and that's how you get the first committer, right? But you had to have a clear conversation by continuing to not just saying we should hang out sometime, but saying like, what is it that would, you know, how can I count on your commitment? And there is the terminal maybe, the you know, maybe that just never goes away. Like, well, you know, I'm just not quite there yet. I need to spend more time with the team. Anybody ever heard that one? Yeah. I need to play with the product some more. Right? You can take those things away. Cool. So if I set up a meeting and you come spend time with the team, right, and that goes well, would you be willing to commit to invest $100,000? Right? Like, you can work through this stuff. But the one that's like, you know, I just need to think about it, they're not going to commit. You can't get them there.
What happens when someone commits and says they are committed, but then they never send you the money?
Well, then you tell everyone that they lied to you, and you better be right. Right? Because yeah, social pressure. So if no, but if somebody says I'm in for 100K no matter what, I'm in. Okay, so it might be $1, right? Yeah. So people do this because, again, unclear conversation. You do not have a soft commitment, because the definition of a soft commitment is specific amount of money, right? They're committed to at least X. So if you can use that definition, it'll help you avoid the I'm in, let's figure out the rest later. Because some investors might do that as a placeholder. I want to be in, but I haven't told you how much money I could do $1. Like, that's my out. I never said how much money. I'm like, no, right? They might be playing that game with you, trying to hold the opportunity for the case where you have momentum and you forget about them and they say, well, I told you I was in. I was the first one to commit. You owe me. That's trying to take a free option on you. That's an investor who's saying, if it gets hot, I want to be in, but I'm not really in because you haven't got a specific commitment with specific, well-understood conditions. And so that's a definition that will help you be better fundraisers, along with better communication.
I think we have time for one more
We get
question.
the high sign already? We get the high sign?
And I'm not going to make Nick run
Twitter
this
link.
time.
I'm going to go Twitter link answers.
Yeah, we'll do rapid fire answers
Couple.
here, and I'm going to try to not make Nick run around. So we'll just go right next to you, Nick.
So you're trying to, you did something right there. That exercise was good. Thank you, by the way.
Yeah, sure.
You did something right there. You had a couple terms. Do you even want to ask if there's other terms?
Yes.
And you just want to keep going until
Yes,
the guy
exhaustive
gives you 12?
list of well understood good conversation does that, right? Because otherwise, I mean, you get in all these situations where you think you have a commitment, but you actually don't, because you're not willing to have the hard conversation. You don't want to risk it, right? But you have to risk it, right? You have to make sure you understand all of the conditions, even if they don't. You're forcing them to think about it, and many people will back off and not commit at that point. but you at least know what else you have to work through. You've got to figure out what else are they worried about. Why aren't they committing? I took away all the hard stuff, right? It's the free option usually that you have to fear, this idea that I want you to think I'm really this close, right? And then you come back to me when it gets hot. That you should be afraid of. That wasn't Twitter link. That was way more than 140 characters.
David, do you mind if I follow that up with an email of things I think we committed to?
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing to do to end the conversation. I'm going to follow up with an email just outlining what you're committing and what the terms, what the conditions are. Not the terms, the conditions. And then I'm going to ask, can you introduce me to, now that you're committed, under those conditions, of course, do you have any others you'd introduce me to? And would it be okay if I tell people that you're committed under those conditions? Because then I get the social sort of build, right?
Have you used any practices or accounting practices that help manage the expectations and excitement of your angel investors? Because unfocus, or I've found that once you find an angel investor, half of your team just wants to say yes to everything, which oftentimes can hinder the conversations in front of this.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure I understand the question.
And this is more so after you're working with an angel.
You've already got the investment, and then what?
Then how do you, as the angel investor, keep your team focused and not just...
My team, meaning the company I invested in, they're not my team. I'm just an investor.
Well,
So
how
that's
do you, right,
how do I keep them focused? It's
it's not up to you, it's up to the entrepreneur.
right, not my company. That's my attitude. I'm just an investor. If I see that you're not making any progress, I'm going to be like, hey, something feels off. Can I help? Right? Other investors will say, here are the 16 things you need to do this month. I don't like that. It's not their company, it's your company, right? Especially for angels. So I wait for you to tell me what you need. That's my attitude, right? I have 600 of them. I can't, I'm not going to manage them all actively, right? But if you ask me for something, I'm going to try my best to do it.
That's also something when you're doing your diligence on potential investors, figure out how involved they are, because you may have angel investors who are more involved, and you can decide if that's a good or a bad thing for you. One more? How do you choose the last
I
question?
hate that. You have to choose it. Yeah, it's terrible. Let's make them dance.
Yeah. With a waving hand in the back.
Do you have any tips around navigating the waters of how much an angel's willing to invest, right? So without having the terms we're looking for exactly this much money, it seems like more of an organic conversation. So any tips around that?
How do I get the most out of a particular angel, dollar-wise?
How do you know if an angel's a $10,000 an angel?
Well, can you tell me about the last 4 or 5 investments you've made? Yeah, I would say things like, how much do you typically invest in startups that you work with? Just again, that's not an offensive question. Again, the analogy back to dating, you have to ask lots of awkward questions, right? In the dating environment, it's the same with this. You just have to ask, right? And if they won't tell you, that's really weird, right? It's why aren't they telling me that?
Sure, thank you.
And then pushing them up is just saying, oh, I see that sometimes you invest more. What would cause you to invest more with me? Right? All right.
All right. Thank you guys for making my job easy. Those were awesome questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, David.
One of my favorite elements of this is everybody in this room, when they pitch David, will be using the tricks right back. Which would be pretty cool. In the way of small asks, we have a reception next door in immediately to my right, your left. There are a lot of students in the room, and to the extent you can keep a special eye out for students, make some connections. Part of our goal here is to collapse the campus and community. This was fantastic in terms of quality. Please help me thank Natty and David. Let's go.